Magandang umaga, Filipinos. Good morning. You're watching Eagle News Mornings from Canada. I'm Thomas I. Likeness from our Eagle News studio in the Western Canadian province of Alberta. My city is Edmonton, and we're bringing you news from across the country. Well, it's Wednesday morning, halfway there to the weekend, middle of the week. Oh, I have to make a note here, my things to do list. We're out of Pandasol. It was just black coffee this morning, and I'm starving. Grab your second cup of 3-in-1 right now. I stocked up on that yesterday for you. Sit back, and let's bring you up to date on what's happening in Canada. First, a look at the weather from across Canada, and our street scene today comes from the Calgary area. This is kind of on the outskirts of Calgary, and this street scene was shot by Jason Galera. Thank you, Jason, and I hope all is well in Calgary. And you'll be able to hear the wind blowing in it in just a little bit. They're kind of windy down there today. Well, a quick look at the weather map. We start on the west coast. Vancouver and Victoria, both in that 13-degree range today with partly cloudy skies. Sunshine in most of Alberta, as well as Saskatchewan. Edmonton at 16, Calgary 15, Saskatoon 15, but only 8 degrees in Regina. We move over to Winnipeg, where we have a few clouds and 14 degrees. Toronto, partly sunny and 13, 15 and a few clouds in Ottawa. Montreal, cooler at 10 degrees with some cloudiness. Now we get into the Atlantic provinces, and you remember I told you yesterday that their summer is really short. If you don't like cold weather, don't go to Atlantic Canada unless it's July or August. The rest of the time it is cool. So there's rain over much of the Atlantic provinces today, and it's cold. Temperatures ranging anywhere from 0 to 3 degrees. As a matter of fact, in Halifax, there's light snow. Some of the stories we're following today: Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's mother is in the hospital. Canada has made progress on controlling COVID-19, but there's still more work to do. And just ask yourself this, should a coronavirus vaccine be mandatory? We'll tell you about that. An update on the flooding in Fort McMurray, Alberta, where a lot of people from the Philippines are living and working. I'll also be speaking with EBC correspondent Marco Zerudo about his take on Ontario's plan to open the province. We told you about that yesterday. Still with that topic, EBC correspondent April Masong tells us when classrooms might reopen in that province. And joining me live this morning, we've got Eagle News correspondent Sabir Mufti. He's going to report from Ottawa, telling us how the homeless in that city are coping with public health orders and a whole bunch of other stuff from that region in Ontario and Quebec. And as we told you last week, the Calgary Stampede has been canceled. We'll find out just how folks are feeling about that from Eagle News correspondent Tiffany Alassasas. We begin in Montreal this morning, where the mother of our Prime Minister is recovering in hospital. She suffered smoke inhalation. 71-year-old Margaret Trudeau was rescued by firefighters from a burning apartment early this morning. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his mother is doing okay.
I know many of you have seen reports about my mom. I want to let you know that I've spoken with her and she's doing just fine. I'm thankful to everyone who's reached out and want to also thank the first responders who were there doing an extraordinary job.
3 other families were evacuated from that building. No other injuries reported. About 70 firefighters responded to the alarm. Cause of the fire not known. It's believed to have started on somebody's balcony. Prime Minister Trudeau says although the curve is starting to flatten, it's still too soon to ease public health restrictions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Now, new modeling shows the number of new cases doubling every 16 days. That's a marked improvement from what it was before, where they doubled every 3 days. And that was just a few weeks ago. But Trudeau says don't become too complacent.
The measures we've taken so far are working. In fact, in many parts of the country, the curve has flattened, but we're not out of the woods yet. We're in the middle of the most serious public health emergency Canada has ever seen. And if we lift measures too quickly, we might lose the progress we've made. So we all need to be very careful for ourselves and especially for the most vulnerable, like our parents, grandparents, and elders in long-term care facilities.
Trudeau says the number of future cases will depend on the behavior of people. Well, what do you think about making a vaccine for COVID-19 mandatory? That question was put to the Prime Minister today at his daily briefing, and Trudeau sidestepped the issue.
Around vaccines, there are obviously going to be extremely important decisions around how to best get to that level of vaccination that will prevent further spread of COVID-19. There's a lot of studies done on that over the past years in terms of what threshold of the population needs to be vaccinated in order to prevent any spread of a disease, and that research will obviously inform decisions we take around the COVID-19 vaccine when it comes.
Now, he says we're a long way from having a vaccine, and, just finding the vaccine, that's got to be the first step. Well, here are the latest numbers from Canada, just over 49,000 cases of COVID-19 right now, and we've reported, sadly, more than 2,700 deaths. The latest projections from the Canadian government's public health experts show the worst case scenario by 1 week today, so that's next Wednesday, more than 67,000 people will be infected with the virus, and they expect deaths at nearly 3,900. Best case, just over 53,000 cases, 3,300 deaths. I'll have a detailed report on those projections in a later broadcast today on Net25, and later on you'll be able to find that story on our website on eaglenews.net. Now, the American numbers are really shocking. I know it's a Canadian cast, but the Americans are our neighbors, and what happens down there has a lot of influence on what happens up here. The American number is shocking. I mentioned this in passing. More than 1 million Americans have been infected with coronavirus. More than 57,000 have died. That's almost as many as died in the Vietnam War. Let me update you on the situation in Fort McMurray, Alberta. 12,000 people have been evacuated from their homes because of flooding. Low-lying areas near the river and downtown, they're all closed off. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney toured the region yesterday.
This is, I gather, a once-in-a-100-year flood situation. Fort McMurray has seen, of course, ice packs and spring floods in the past, and most recently a significant one 20 years ago. But this apparently is a once-in-a-century situation. We took a flight over the city and saw the impact. It's very significant.
Kenney says Fort McMurray deserves help from all Canadians.
I'm just here on behalf of all Albertans to share our solidarity and our practical support with Wood Buffalo and the people of Fort McMurray. As they get through this, we will provide all resources that are necessary. Fort McMurray has done more than any other community to fuel Alberta's prosperity and, frankly, Canada's prosperity in recent decades. Both the province and the country owe this town and the people that live in it and work in it. We will be there. We will be obviously supporting the community, both in the emergency phase and the rebuild phase.
Well, what about the federal government? Prime Minister Trudeau says Ottawa is standing by, ready to help.
We stand ready to help in any ways we can. And as in regards to military support, we're there for military support if we receive a request from the province.
Now, before we leave this story, I want to show you some pictures of the flooding. These came courtesy of the Alberta government. And these pictures here just show how bad this flooding is. This is not what the community needed while it tries to cope with the pandemic. It's just amazing how that water has come up as high as the bottom of a stop sign there. Cars completely underwater. It's just amazing the power of that river. Well, yesterday we told you about Ontario's plan to reopen the province. It'll come in 3 phases, but Premier Doug Ford offered no timelines on that. And I had the opportunity earlier this morning to talk with Eagle News correspondent Marco Zeruto in Toronto. I wanted to get his take on this plan. Marco, Premier Ford has outlined a plan to open up the province, restart the economy, but it seems kind of vague. There's not a lot of detail. What's his thinking here?
Well, when we listen to the press conference and when we listen to him during his other press conferences, the way he sounds like he doesn't just treat it as he is the Premier of Ontario. He kind of sees it as he's the dad. He's the father figure for everybody. So he wants to make sure that everyone knows what they need to do. Everyone understands why we're doing the things that we're doing. And he might not have all the answers, but we are moving towards the solution. And the only way we're going to get to that solution and get the final answers is if we work together.
Do you think he was pressured? You know, there's been protests and everything there.
Yes.
People trying to push him to reopen stuff. With this outline that he's given us, do you think that was a response to that political pressure?
I think when Premier Ford sees the protest and the criticisms that people might be giving about the different measures that he's trying to enact in the province, whether those criticisms are from Toronto, from anywhere across the province or in the country, he kind of just brushes it off. You know, what he sees here is, I need to look out for all Ontarians. And if there are those who want to do reckless things the way he says it, and if they want to be yahoos and treat this like this is any other kind of situation where people don't need to really believe what the government says, you know, his faith is that the law will take care of itself. He's focused on what he needs to do as Premier, and that is get the province of Ontario through this pandemic as safely and as quickly as possible.
It doesn't seem like he's going to let politics influence any of his decisions when it comes to restarting the economy.
That's right. Whenever he is talking, I mean, you know, Justin Trudeau is a liberal. He is a conservative. John Tory was one of his rivals for the longest time. When he speaks, he doesn't see those kinds of colors. He continuously praises the federal government. He continuously praises the city of Toronto and the other cities across Ontario, making sure that we all understand that this isn't about party lines. This is about getting past the finish line. And that is getting through this pandemic, all of us, safely and quickly as possible. So it's not about the election race, it's about the human race right now. He's trying to make everyone understand that it's important that we all work together, regardless of our ideologies, regardless of our beliefs. This is something that attacks everybody. COVID-19 doesn't care about your political views. All it cares about is harming all of us. So we all have to band together to get through this.
Marco, is there any other insight you'd like to give us?
Well, when you look at the press conferences, the way he talks when there is a question, he really tries to do his best to give informed, factual responses. But at the same time, he also knows and he admits that he doesn't have all the answers. And that's why he does have the team behind him that is helping Ontario get through all of this. So whenever you see a question being asked from him and he knows that he shouldn't be the one answering it, he will delegate it to the proper minister or the proper person who should be knowing this information, because he's not treating this like this is...
Marco, Premier Ford has outlined a plan to open up the... We seem to have lost Marco there in mid-sentence, but truly we do live in interesting times. That was Toronto correspondent Marco Zerudo. Coming up, we'll find out what the immediate future is for school students in Ontario. You're watching Eagle News Mornings from Canada.
Magtatagumpay tayo, salamat. Kung mag-fail tayo, salamat. Ang importante po, sinubukan natin, ginawa natin yung makakaya natin.
Napatunayan ko na yung talent na binigay sa akin ng Diyos, mas may expose pa. Kaya sa mga ibang artist dyan, lalo na sa mga may kapansanan din, mag-explore pa tayo ng ibang bagay tulad nito. Huwag tayong magtago, huwag tayong mahihiya. Gawin natin kung ano yung gusto talaga nating gawin.
This program is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Vet-approved NutriChunks, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo ganado ang fur babies nyo. Listo ganado sa NutriChunks. Co-presented by Kubert, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Kubert, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee. Masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Unlad Incorporated International. Fight against global poverty. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint. Color for protection for your home. Matimco. Matimco is wood. Wood is Matimco. R Square Variables Incorporated. Your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. CompuZell Computer Services, ID card and lanyard manufacturer. Saisho International Trading Corporation. DN Steel. EMAC UPVC Roof Corporation.
The Bulacan Bulk Water Project is a treatment facility that will provide bulk water to the 24 municipalities of Bulacan to meet the increasing water demand of its residents. Through concessionaire, SMC Infrastructure also initiated the significant improvements of the Manila North Harbor Port, the country's busiest port.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved NutriChunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa NutriChunks.
This is Eagle News Mornings from Canada. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. While Quebec is ready to open schools for elementary school students in a couple of weeks, it's going to be a while before kids in Ontario get back to the classroom. Eagle News correspondent April Masong tells us schools in the province will remain closed until the end of May.
The Ontario government is once more extending its school closures until May 31st, 2020 to help keep students, teachers, staff, and families safe and lessen the community transmission of COVID-19. This decision is based primarily on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health and other health officials that serve the COVID-19 command table. This extra period of time will allow current models and projections to be updated accordingly, thus properly informing the next steps the provincial government must take to help keep Ontarians safe. When Ontario took immediate action to close its schools, the first province in Canada to do it, they introduced the Learn at Home portal. This portal offers high-quality learning resources in English and French, created and put together by Ontario educators. All resources are intended to help meet elementary and high school curriculum standards, but still keeping all content entertaining and engaging for all learners. The Ontario government is also working with Rogers Communication and Apple to help support student learning at home during this time. Apple is providing more learning resources in English and French. iPads with ready LTE wireless data connections are being distributed to school boards. More than 20,000 iPads have been sent to families in need. The free wireless data will be available until the end of June. Given that there will only be a month of the school year left if schools will resume on May 31st, the Ministry of Education is working to replace remaining days of professional development and examination days with instructional time instead. Summer learning programs will also be expanded to make sure students can earn and receive lost credits. Education Minister Stephen Latche reassures Ontario students regarding the completion of their school year. He said, regardless of what transpires over the coming weeks, Ontario students will be able to complete their school year with confidence. In particular, for students in their final year, we are removing all impediments to ensure students graduate and pursue post-secondary education. In Toronto, April Masong, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
In the nation's capital, there are efforts to help the homeless cope with public health orders because of the pandemic. And standing by with that story, we have Eagle News correspondent Sabir Mufti. Sabir, before we get into that story, tell us about the numbers in Ontario.
Certainly. It's good to see you, Tom. Right now, the numbers look at 15,000 and just over 15,300 cases in Ontario, with about 900 and just over 950 950 deaths. In Quebec, we've got just close to 25,000 cases and close to 1,600 deaths. In Ottawa, my hometown, we have just over 1,220 laboratory confirmed cases, including 71 deaths that have been reported. 67 new cases just today and 12 new deaths. So some of the stories I'm following is in the government of Ontario. The government of Ontario unveils a new website called COVID-19 Tracking the Barriers. Now, this website is to help businesses overcome challenges created by the pandemic. Businesses looking to retool their operations or continue their operations can submit any roadblocks they face to this website. So that means the province is prepared to change provincial rules and regulations in order to remove those barriers hindering businesses and negatively impacting supply chains. Now over to our friends in the the east of us, the province of Quebec has unveiled its measures to gradually open up businesses and get its economy started. Starting May 4th, retail stores and stores with exterior entrances, excluding the Greater Montreal region, are able to open. And moving on from there, on May 11th, all construction sectors and manufacturers, excluding residential construction, they're allowed to open. Now, the manufacturers must have strict physical distancing in place. Now, on May 25th, they're looking to open all manufacturers 100% without any restrictions. So they're really looking to start this economy rather quickly. However, Premier Legault does want to gradually start things in order to not relaunch this pandemic. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I guess we'll soon find out. Moving to Ottawa, the most vulnerable in the city of Ottawa have much needed help coming their way. So Thomas, with all the clear rules in place from regards to physical distancing, washing hands, self-isolation, and all these rules set up by public health authorities across the country, many of us have adapted well and have the means to adapt. However, the homeless population here in Ottawa and in many cities across the country are finding it challenging to follow these guidelines without support. That's why the City of Ottawa has created the city's Human Needs Task Force, and that has quickly brought together more than 45 community partners to make sure that all residents have the support they need and can access the service they rely on. Here are 5 ways the task force has helped so far. So in regards to physical distancing, due to shelters for men and women hitting their capacity, the city will be opening up recreational centers to help ease that strain. In regards to self-isolation, we all know the instructions to self-isolate if you feel like you have symptoms of COVID-19 or you've traveled out of province, you've come back, you have to self-isolate for 14 days. Well, again, this is difficult for anyone experiencing homelessness. So a task force opened up more community centers offering bed isolation and treatment centers. They partnered with the University of Ottawa, which opened up an isolation center for families. And with the help of the Youth Services Bureau in partnership with the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, they have opened isolation facilities for the youth, those aged 16 to 21. And the third is daytime respite. So that means showers, daily showers, washroom breaks, all those sort of things. Now, those happen to be challenging as well for those experiencing homelessness. So to increase access to showers and washrooms, the city opened up hockey arenas and placed more portable washrooms downtown and are looking for other locations to increase more portable washrooms. Food security is another big thing. With our high unemployment rate, we were seeing that the food banks are seeing increased numbers. So what the city is doing to help those food banks and the community is they're distributing more resources, so information for communities to access. So information about where to pick up food, where you can get your food dropped off, delivery services, any services to help you get your food when you need it. And the Ottawa Food Bank has purchased $550,000 worth of grocery store gift cards, which they are distributing to food banks across the city. And finally, the outreach to isolated seniors and rural residents. The task force has taken many community partners to reach out to their residents to call them, to ask them, to find out how they're doing, making sure they're able to connect with them. They even asked the Canadian Red Cross to reach out to all the people that they know. They've gone out and done personal visits to anybody who weren't able to be contacted by phone. So really reaching out to the seniors, especially out in the rural residents, those who are maybe feeling that isolation is very stressful to them. They're trying to ease that stress. So, they're doing their best. The city is putting in place different regulations and helping out our residents and communities. And to note, in regards to the Pandesal, I just created some last week, but next time I'm making Pandesal, Tom, I'll send it your way. Listen, from Ottawa, Sabir Mufti, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Well, I look forward to the Pandesal, Sabir. Before I let you go, I've been scouring the wire services over the last several weeks, and every time I see stories about homeless in other countries, you see these big tent cities. What's the situation like in our nation's capital, in Ottawa?
Well, the homeless people are still, luckily the weather is warming up, so more and more people are still outside where they generally stay. The shelters, they're at capacity, so they could use about 100 and 150 beds just to help with the capacity. They're servicing about 500 families right now. Those families are in shelters with shared bathrooms and sometimes shared kitchen to 15 families. So again, physical distancing is tough, and it's really causing a lot of stress and anxiety. But they do have to help. The city is helping by opening up a lot more beds.
So it sounds like they've got the start on a comprehensive plan there, but certainly a less than ideal situation. Thank you very much, Sabir, for your time today. We told you last week that the Calgary Stampede has been canceled, and that is a big event. I used to live in Calgary. I worked there for a couple of years, and yeah, that is a real blow to the Calgary economy, but even to the morale of people. Eagle News correspondent Tiffany Alasasis reports that cancellation has left several people disappointed. To be unavailable, we'll get that for you tomorrow. Some other notes before I go. Edmonton is laying off another 900 workers, including 450 bus drivers. Seems fewer people are taking transit. Hours of service have been reduced. 2,500 people in my city have been laid off. They're city workers. They're on furlough now. It's an attempt to reduce taxes because, when this all ends, even if people are back at work, don't know about you, but money's going to be tight. Money's going to be tight, and how can you afford higher taxes? Now, something I'm looking forward to, it starts next week. EBC is relaunching Daily Insight. Daily Insight. Make it a source of the latest news in business and technology. You'll have inspirational stories behind small and medium enterprises. And say, are you thinking of starting your own business? Watch this because you'll find some useful advice here. Join hosts Mayanne Gerzon and Randy Bernardino. Daily Insight returning next week. Check out the promotional material. They got a Facebook page up there now. That's our program for today. I've got to get out of here. Thank you for watching, and on behalf of our Canadian news team, I wish you all good health. Take care of others, take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.